Cash envelopes and bank accounts both have their advantages when coming to saving in your sinking funds. Whereas cash envelopes make savings significantly more tangible and put boundaries around savings, bank accounts can be accessed by more than one person and remotely. But which one is best for you? Let's find out. Let's back up a little bit and set a foundation for what you are saving for in these sinking funds. A sinking fund is a way of saving for a known expense that's happening in the future, saving for it month by month, little by little, so that when that expense comes around, you are not shanghaied by the expense. Oftentimes, these expenses are charges that happen regularly, but they don't happen month to month. So it can be a little bit more difficult to add this into our normal monthly budget. But saving for these expenses month by month relieves us of the stress when that charge actually comes about. So let's start with the pros of cash envelopes. Pro number one is that cash envelopes can be extremely tangible, and I have found it to be extremely powerful to tangibly be holding on to the money that I am saving. There is just something about holding the actual cash in my hand that is being saved up for a specific expense. The second pro is that it actually helps your overspending. If you specifically put that money in each envelope, then you're less likely to spend it because you know that once that money is out of that envelope, you don't have any more money to spend in that specific category. The third pro is that using cash envelopes makes the money that you have saved out of sight and out of mind. If it's not physically in front of you, then you don't remember that you have it most of the time. If you're putting that money away once a month and then not looking at it, it's unlikely that you're going to be remembering the money that you have saved stuck away somewhere, and then you won't be tempted to use it. But what about the cons for cash envelopes? Cash envelopes can be really difficult to spend using the cash specifically for online purchases, since a lot of our world is very mobile and digitized. If you were fully going to be using cash envelopes and you needed to make a purchase online, either for a bill online or if you were purchasing something online, you would have to go take that cash, go deposit it into an ATM, and then you would be able to use that money for whatever online charge you have. So it makes it a little bit more complicated for you to get to that point of being able to make that purchase. However, that can actually be looked at as a good thing if spending money online is something that you struggle with, because that takes one extra step that you're going to have to do just to be able to make that purchase. The second con is that it's extremely time consuming to be putting cash away in each envelope every month. You may have to go to the bank to make sure you have the exact change that you want and the exact bills that you want. And on top of that, if you only have one cash envelope, it makes it very difficult to be sharing that with a spouse or partner. So if you are both people spending money, it is very difficult to both have the envelope. The next con is really, if you lose it, you lose it. There's a lack of security that comes with carrying cash around, which is probably a lot of the reason why our world is going more towards digital. But because there is a lack of security with using cash, it also makes it a lot more difficult to recover it if you lose it. Or if you were with a bank, if someone were to steal your credit card or hack into your bank account, most of the time banks will credit you back for whatever the money that was stolen. The next con is that cash doesn't earn any interest. If you're having cash under your bed or in your wallet, it is not earning any interest, whereas in a bank accounts, yes, they earn a very, very small percentage interest. However, it's still interest more than cash is that is sitting in your wallet. And the last con, it is very tempting to move cash between different envelopes if you're wanting to spend on something, but you don't have the cash in that specific envelope for. Like, what's keeping me from moving my grocery money into my fund money in the cash envelope since they're right next to each other? That is cash envelopes. Let's switch on over to bank accounts now. So some pros for bank accounts. Number one is that it is mobile. You can access all of your bank accounts very quickly, either from your phone or from your laptop. It can easily be seen by spouses if you are sharing money because it can be seen in two different places, and you can have immediate access to it whenever you need it. If you needed to get cash out, you could obviously always go to an ATM and immediately take that cash out if you needed to. Whereas there are a lot of pros for those bank accounts, some cons are it can get extremely complicated if you have multiple bank accounts for all of your sinking funds. For example, my husband gets very overwhelmed sometimes. We have about 6 bank accounts, and sometimes looking at that makes my husband a little overwhelmed. I even sometimes look at our bank account and still get kind of confused. I have to make sure that each of our bank accounts are labeled specifically for whatever the goal is for each of those bank accounts. And the next con is that it is not likely that you are going to save as much within a bank account. Psychologically, it literally hurts to be using cash, which makes humans want to be able to hold on to that money longer. And therefore that makes saving in the long run a little bit easier. So going digital most likely means that you're not going to be saving as much money. So I laid out all of the pros and cons. The real question is, which is best for you? And I'll start by saying there are pros to using both of them. Figuring out what works for you is going to take trial and error, and therefore going to take some time to figure that out. My suggestion, and what I've talked about in my past videos, is to start small and keep it simple. Instead of having multiple bank accounts for different sinking funds, just start with having one bank account for long-term sinking funds and then another bank account for short-term sinking funds. You can always add more and go from there if you feel like you're comfortable doing so, but starting small is a great place to start for beginners. You can also certainly use both cash envelopes and bank accounts. Using cash cash envelopes for some sinking funds and then using bank accounts for other sinking funds. But only you are going to be able to figure out what works for you. And keep in mind, you don't need anything special. You just need a system that works for you and your spouse, and specifically something that doesn't make saving money and going over your finances something that you dread. I did want to share what has been working for us in terms of these cash envelopes versus bank accounts. I'll say what worked for us took a lot of trial and error. Like I said in my 5 essential bank accounts videos, we've probably changed our bank accounts at least, if not more, 3 times in the course of us being married, which has been less than a year. And we're still refining the process as we keep going to figure something out that works for both of us. And honestly, if I were to just look at the list of pros and cons for both cash envelopes and bank accounts, I would honestly think using only bank accounts would actually be what was best for us. However, in actually trying that out, it's actually not the best thing that works for us. We figured out for large sinking funds, so anything where the end goal is something over $500, we use a bank account for. So we have a separate banking account for vacations, we have a separate banking account for our house maintenance fund, for our car maintenance fund. All of those things have an end goal of over $500, so we keep those all in our bank account. For our sinking funds that our end goal is under $500, we actually usually keep them in a cash envelope. And the reason we keep our large sinking funds in a bank account is simply because it's not realistic for us to keep that much money on hand in cash at a single time. For us, these sinking funds can carry thousands of dollars in them, and I just don't really feel safe carrying thousands of dollars with me in cash, even within my home. I've tried several different kinds of methods in order to keep my cash envelopes organized. I've used those plastic accordion files. You can buy them for like $1 at the dollar store. I've used a little binder planner with different literal envelopes in them, 3-hole punched, and I was sticking cash into those. I didn't like the plastic accordion file. I felt like it kept breaking. I didn't like using the binder because I didn't feel like I could see all of the money in the different categories that I had. But actually the best option that I ended up finding for us is this roll-up cash envelope system. I love that you can open it up all the way and right away see which spots have money and which ones don't. This cash organizer came with labels kind of like the size of business cards, which I don't particularly like because I feel like I only have one-time use. And if I change the envelope, then I don't have any more cards. So that is why I have post-it notes used for labeling each of them. I like that I can open this up and see everything that I have right away. And this has actually become one of my most favorite Amazon finds. So I will link this down below if you want to check it out. And I'll be honest, I used to always be very anti cash envelopes, and that's because I personally really hate keeping cash on hand. I've always been the person, if I ever had any more than $50 on hand, I was usually going to the ATM to deposit it, and that's specifically because I'm very paranoid about keeping cash. I've gotten my bag and my wallet stolen not just once but twice, and that kind of just gave me an experience to not keep any amount of cash on hand. When we got married, one of the things we really did invest in when we did get married was a very good quality safe for our home. This one was certainly a pricey investment for us, but our safe is actually where we keep our cash envelopes. So our cash envelopes stay in our safe. At the beginning of the month, I take our cash envelopes out. I have the cash already on hand that I'm going to put in each envelope. I put that money in each specific spot, and then the only other time I take the cash envelope out is if I am going to be using the money that is in the envelope. And when that happens, I just take the envelope out. I take the cash out that I want to right when I need to use it, and then I put the cash envelope back in the safe. I don't carry cash around me on a regular basis. I think that's just an accident waiting to happen. The safe that we specifically bought is fireproof and waterproof. It's also where we keep our passports and other important documents. So all that to say, I highly recommend having a safe in your home for those documents or for any large amounts of cash that you have. It doesn't have to be big and expensive, and there are plenty out there on the market for different price points. So just find something in your budget. I highly suggest that. I will link the one that we have down below in the description bar. If you need help figuring out which sinking funds are best for you, check out my 7 essential sinking funds video right here. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, liking this video, and commenting down below. I will see you guys in the next video.